I like always, always
Should we mute while we're not
If you
speaking?
wish, yeah, especially if there's noise
we're
in the
not
background.
like getting noise.
So I'm Sarah Ryan. I live in Lubbock, Texas, and I'm getting my PhD here in poetry. And I'm the author of 2 chapbooks, Never Leave the Foot of an Animal Unskinned and Excellent Evidence of Human Activity. And yeah, so I have some poems for you guys. I'm going to read the poem that I got published in Thrush, and then a couple of other poems as well. So this first poem is called Cuffing Season. See urge, see how to know if something has bitten you. Wait for the cold to come. Wait until your bed is glacial enough to take the down blanket out of the closet. Your friend laughs and says, it's cuffing season, but she really wants to say, any love you feel right now isn't love, but a yearning for warmth. Remember what you looked like at 21. You were so different then, so hopeful, unsure of your shoulders. You were nothing. You were wanting for winter, for snow, everything in the before. You left the dead behind and knew it, left everything to dust. You believed in no one. You were young, you had plenty of time, you went west, you let your car run into rust, you looked back and laughed when the wind called your name. Now you convince yourself you know this place, you name it an animal, softness beneath your feet, large empty sounds carved from the air. The plateau stretches out forever, like metal, dull sheets of gold. You remember the trees more than anything, the shade, the shadows they threw across the earth, rocks, wilds, and woods, your body shoved into fog, between the barn and trees and brooks and birds. This is the river where your love died. When you burned it, the fire curled up, your mouth was open and warm. You were so different then. So that's the first poem. I picked it because it has the remember what you looked like at 21, and everyone, I don't know if you've been on Twitter, people are sharing like pictures of themselves when they were 20.
I've seen that. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Kind of like a funny coincidence. This next poem is the one I got published in Thrush. It's called Grasp. I learned the word for willow tree. I learned the word for howl and keep it in my throat. The word for wolf curls underneath my tongue. I have studied pain this way, tucking it into the folds of my body where darkness settles. I wonder about the waking. The sun-split morning burns into orange peel, dappled heat. An extinct volcano comes back to life, but we aren't told how we know the mountain has begun to stir. How stone yawns and spins hot into the world again. I wish I could say that I saved the morning dove, but I can't be sure. Every bird dies a death, falls from the sky and sleeps. It is hard to banish this thought, that everything wakes up and waits for living, for the word that names the blue color of a pale vein. Who wouldn't want to wake an ancient thing from the deepest sleep? Who wouldn't want to dig and find the still wet blood of a long dead fawn? A miracle, maybe, how the earth shudders beneath us, how we dance along the fractures. Thank you. I'm saying thank you as though there's like people like clapping.
We're like, listening and we are clapping.
Silent clapping. So I'm like, I'll say thank you. This next one is called Self-Portrait as Mammal. I have been lost for some time now. The hunt has been long and cold, and maybe it has all been for nothing. Listen, my cat and I sleep back to back like 2 mirrored moons. This is how I learned my body's soft groan, its clumsy bones growing heavier each night. This is when fur tangles and emerges from my mouth like an animal. It is something familiar. I call it beast, and it grows teeth. Somehow, the only thing I fear is the dull knock of my heart, its dangerous call into the wild. To quench its cry, I undress and redress and undress again in front of the window like the whole world can see me. I glow like lamplight, like some tropical and unnamed creature, feathered and clawed, foul or forked tongue. What would it take to be an assassin of my body's claim to blood and pain? I wish I could be as flashy as the waterfall, as Niagara's roar. It spills and does not stop, even when engineers divert the water and it becomes a drizzle, even when a bird flies into the rush, even when I shiver in the mist, lean into the spray. This next poem is called Call Me a Courage. It's about kind of like the groupings of animals and how we name them. And I know some people have talked about like watching TV shows now and seeing people gather and being like freaked out about it. They're like, why are people in groups? Like, and I feel like this, like I've read this poem and I was like, oh, like people in groups, like freaky. So this is called Call Me a Courage. I want to name all the birds, to identify kingdom and phylum and order and family and genus. I forget sometimes that we name everything that bleeds. I want to categorize their clumsy syllables, know them by their candy-colored wings, the soft nakedness of their feet. I want to call out to them, each one, by its name, as though I had known it all along. In the museum diorama, their bodies are mid-flight, perched, diving into glass. Oh, those four-chambered hearts, the hollow bones of flightless deaths. Funny how we strive to name groups of anything, a prowl of jaguars, a streak of tigers, how we name companionship as though it is something surprising to want, to need. A brash of deer lingers in the dew-wet lawn of my childhood home, chewing clover, blinking into the dense fog. I wonder, what would we name a group of me? 20 versions of my body shift in a field. My skin collects wetness at dawn. I'm skittish, maybe. I look for shelter. A dissimulation of birds watches from the tree line. An exaltation of larks bursts from an oak in a splash of darkness. Somehow, everyone looks beautiful in white, like doves, feathered romantic things. On my side of the glass, the creatures I see are always more frightening. Let's name us a murder, a musket, a loneliness. So this next poem is called, I only have two more. This next poem is called Origin of the Mapping System. I was potentially everything, a glass atlas. My legend bled dry with the clean cut of a knife. No, I have never scorched my body in search of warmth. I bury myself in sand, and it is everything I expect. I am filled. I find the grains later, and they are small planets I have taken and kept, polished slivers of quartz. My skin is a scavenger hunt, a map of where pain bloomed around me like milk, where I studied how my bones clicked, snapped. I loved a man. He made me a girl who listened well. All I wanted was the good and beautiful things I had heard about. And who could blame me? I wanted pleasure, to be touched in wet terrestrial places. I wanted to loosen into bright shards of earth. Once, I pretended that I wore a crown of opals, of the richest dirt-sweet soil. And this last poem is like sort of a funny, I mean, it has a funny title. Eloisa Amezcua had written a poem about, I think it was like, I haven't masturbated for 5 days for fear of crying. So this is, I have masturbated 3 days in a row and can't stop crying, after Eloisa Amezcua. And it has an epigraph. The epigraph is, I break out of my body this way, an annoying miracle. And that's from Anne Sexton's The Ballad of the Lonely Masturbator. I am a perfect animal. I know what lives in my hips, the sweet capsizing of my body. I know that loving myself is supposed to get easier, but it's the exact opposite of what I was told. At night, alone, my sweat dries into crystals, Salt coats my tongue and runs down my chin. I wonder if it's because winter refuses to come, because my mother tells me to get over a man who broke me into small pieces of glass, refusing to come, because the cat claws the leather couch, refusing to come. The heater breaks and my breath clouds the air. I am not the only one, plum ripening and rotting, the long-fingered girl searching for the slippery buttons of a blouse. I do not forget to watch the actors gazing at each other, whispering what they want, every stifling deepness. I do not forget to note how they rise and fall like aching bridges. They are strange and glimmering creatures, perfect animals, how they torture themselves like swinging bells. Thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Hi, Teresa.
Hey, sorry I was a minute late.
That's okay. We're not strict about rules. Who wants to go next? Thank you. That was beautiful, Sarah. You guys pick it. Who's next?
I can go next.
Okay, great.
Tom and I will read you some poems. Hi, I'm Kate Gaskin, and my first book is coming out from Yes Yes Books next month. It's Forever War, and so I'm going to read just a few poems from this book. And thank you so much, Helen, for having us. And
Thank you.
This first poem I'm going to read is called Operation Sweet. My spouse is in the Air Force, so we've gone through quite a few deployments over the years. Operation Sweet. I let myself believe we retired your desert flight suit, shipped it, chastened, back to 2007, when your plane was a neon thundering that split the tropopause in two. Those first few weeks without you, the baby's black eyes staring up from the crook of my arm while snow fell through the elms. I too am distrustful of any group in lockstep, large manipulations of starlings, formations of them on the parade ground, reveille, reveille. And yet, if a plane is just a ribcage falling, then a man is just a ribcage begging. Over Kandahar, your voice tinny and small, ricocheting off glinting satellites back to me. In those days, I could never drink so much as a whiskey without trying to replace myself entirely with another kind of woman, one who wouldn't wait for you through thunder that growled from the margins of the woods as I stood, ankle deep in a flood, the doves promising your return like clockwork, back to the bougainvillea each spring. You can lie to me this time. Say you'll stay. Hindu Kush, rising from the horizon like rows of frozen teeth. And the next poem that I'm going to read is actually the poem that I published in Thrush. Elegy with citrus greening and a 100-year flood. Whether trilliums appear at the foot of March, or redbuds catch fire, and if cranes light in the river, or if bees, or morels beneath canopies of hardwoods, or the gull flicking up into the hallways of pastel houses, even if elderberry, if oranges mottled and hard in winter, or the flit of kings and their migration north, frozen in ryegrass in the dead end of spring. Even then in beauty, even if gone, if the water rising. I also have a very excited 8-year-old in the next room playing a video game. So you might be able to hear some background noise. This next poem is called Bad Fruit. Say I come to you with an apple for a palm. Would you eat it? Perhaps the word etiquette, translated across a body of tenderness, becomes madness. If it is true our bodies ripen and spoil like fruit, then to capture the sweetest bite is a trick. Say we marry, and our bodies become a road. Day in and day out, we wind past beautyberry, red basil, trees with oranges like heavy yellow lungs. In the yard is another fish kill, and everywhere the oaks were moss for hair. I have heard an unusual bounty of sharks has been photographed beyond the lip of the shore. And I have seen the rough feast of dolphins, the brown curl of the tide like a tendril of hair fallen across the mouth of the sea. We lost the hibiscus in the freeze last winter. So many palm trees have died on our watch. Say, I come to you with shoulders like prickly pear and forearms slick with pokeweed. For years I beg you to eat. In the air, ospreys sail like a killing over small castles of fish. When the sea rushes in, we pucker back our mouths and sputter. What is saltier than two bodies in love? A few years ago, we were stationed in Pensacola, and that was much nicer than being in Nebraska, because it snowed yesterday. Okay, and then I'm just going to read one more. And I have it marked. This poem is called Fuck, Marry, Kill. Definitely Marlon Brando. Definitely biceps, white shirt, problematic grease stains. Definitely longing in hot palmetto, rusted lacework of wrought iron. Give me a fantasy so humid I forget it's in black and white. There are months when no one touches me, months of snow, the mailman trudging down sidewalks hard glazed with ice. In an email, I tell you I'd marry Paul Newman, run away to his Connecticut backyard, fortify my heart with golden retrievers, salad dressing, a flame that never shakes. Tell me what's at stake in this war I can't hear or see. On the news, another woman explodes in a crowded marketplace. Snipers go panther still behind their scopes. When you've been gone long enough, I pour a glass of wine and watch charade. It's a big decision, who lives, who dies. But I'm lonely and I'm young, and this version of Cary Grant is done for. When you finally come home, the thaw slings up the tulips one by one. And that's it.
Those were great. Thanks so much, Kate. Who wants to read next? James, you want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
That was lovely. Thank you. So I'm going to read from this manuscript that's going to come out in 2022, which is an actual date. So it's called, right now it's called Last Pawn Shop in New Jersey, and LSU is doing it. So I'm going to read two poems, or three poems. The first two are with Thrush. This one's called Polycardial. You don't have to be a cephalopod to understand it's good to have a spare hidden somewhere in the body's crags. You don't need to possess random superpowers, nor free dive in Arctic rifts or play emotional whack-a-mole. I mean, who couldn't use a wonderfully engorged backup, a blue reliever to answer the hunger of being human? You never know. You never know. But spares these days, hard to come by. Can't score them in the East Village anymore, not dozing on a bench in Tompkins Square Park. Not even Brooklyn. Forget Brooklyn. Imagine. Some days you slump in the paunch of a lawn chair, sipping gin and tonic, and a gremlin goes by, and you dream the smell of your teenage self and herself, how you took time, how she showed you, kissing in an orange beater that forever faintly stunk of oil and singed carburetor hose and stale Parliament cigarettes. Her car, her mouth. It was good, right? In your rush, you were kind, right? All those fantasies are now memories. They float in a softly lit aquarium you've curated your whole life. And you almost returned to 1982. Yellowy street lamp night cassettes. Take on me, I melt with you. Why are we equal parts tender and not? Perhaps we were once polycardial, one heart air, the other air that burns. Maybe one burst and cauterized the other, or the humans exhausted all the feelings, so ran to the fjord and threw our wasted heart into the sea, which might explain squid and octopi, and why we are lousy at swimming, and why your heart falls in the sink of your old, tired, weak, worn-out body, which no longer sleeps, which wakes and stirs the warm second you hear your wife open the screen door. Children shrieking in the yard as they gather jarfuls of fireflies. Listen, let the air be an ocean. Let the ocean occupy your tongue. I wrote that after Nikki Beer. I never told her that. Maybe I should tell her that. This one's called Parking Garage. In the end, you have to go home. You have to leave the hospital room where you stand bedside, though there's no bed anymore, which an hour ago was hers. In the end, nothing belonging to no body. Hers, no longer hers. You must head down the ramp through the sliding glass doors and cheap fluorescence of a gray garage and find the car she parked somewhere weeks ago. Which level? Which space? You ask someone in scrubs for help, and she can see you are not right, and gentle with your not rightness. You are saying nothing new. You are a son. Your mother has died. All you need to do is find the car, but you can't even, and break again. It will be this way a while, driving down the turnpike, tired of feeling rented, chemo urine, talc, stubborn in the leather. You tell yourself, your body needs to be yours again. Then relief, guilt, a profusion. But all that's fiction. A person you have yet to be. Right now, grief is simple. Find the car. Let the engine run some. Take care not to damage anything on the way out. I'm looking for you. I'm looking at you for your sadness, which must be like mine right now.
Yeah, that was, I think all of us got pretty sad on that one.
Like, holy shit, are you guys okay? I really wrecked on that.
I remember reading that for the first time when you sent it to Thrush and thought, I have to publish this poem.
Yeah, okay. This is called The Listening. Snow again. I can't hear it falling in birches, yard, garden beds, heady tufts and root down of winter carrots, though I stare out there as if listening to the making. The way a kid I'd rise in the middle of night looking for my father, the house the usual dark I'd sleepwalk through. Eventually someone would find me sitting on the living room floor, W sitting, snow on television, or staring canvas blank out a window. Snowman, they'd call, nudge me back, silence cracking like a crocus. The reveal, all that breaking, a kiss. I don't know if I've loved anything more. When my father died, a backhoe broke the sky open, which filled with crows, and the dusting coated the cars lining the cemetery road. Snow falling on my father's death day, a little much, even for me, so prone to melancholy, which is a way of sketching your loss. Years ago, I had a friend who used to say, love is a kind of opening. She had a freezer stashed with vodka and chocolate, a way of making me crash on her couch. My friend was talking about trees, what we know, what we feel, how they conspire each other. I was afraid then, if I stopped by, my body would fly open, a blizzard of wings. That if I gave up grieving, he'd die all over again, or I'd die without something to grieve. She must have known this too, how winter shuts a mouth down, then more mouth, more mouth. Some days, the light, right. I walk an hour or so into a stand of birches not far from my house, move through the space between trees, and it's like the trees pass through me. The ghost of my breath, my father, my friend, sitting on the couch in her apartment. We are all there. I hear them talking and want to slip off my shoes. Snow, listening, the nerve to stay a while. It's exactly like she was saying. And that's it. That one's for Catherine Barnett.
Thank you so much, James. Those were beautiful. Who wants to go next? We got like the whole side of the screen done on one side.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Happy to go.
Yeah.
If needed. Okay. So my name is Laura Donnelly, and I'm up in Oswego, New York, which is north of Syracuse on Lake Ontario. And thank you so much, Helen, for doing this.
Thank you, guys.
And also for the gorgeousness that is Thrush. And it's just a real pleasure to get to be here with these words right now. So I'm going to start with the poem that Thrush published. I think it was in March of 2018. And the title is A Brief History of Time. And both that and a line later in the poem, To Know the Mind of God, are quotes from Stephen Hawking. A Brief History of Time. In the first instance, hard tongues of hostas poke through debris, matted oak leaves, bent knees. In the second, a house performs a blue aria. In the first instance, lilacs bloom, velvet tabs, a lace pinafore, a promise. Let the solstice do its work, thighs damp when we rise. Let us measure it not by the end. To know the mind of God. The house, its glorious windows and lungs envelop the rising scent. And then I'm going to read a poem from my book Watershed, which came out from Cider Press Review a few years ago. It's called Houle, and I think of it as a spring poem, and it's trying to be spring outside. We have snow forecasted here as well, so who knows, but this is called Houle. The thing that wants to be born is turned sideways and stiffening. You must twist the head, thread the flexible cartilage, and pull until the forehoof relaxes. The mare's heaves will crush your shoulder, crush the night into shards of stable and moon. But once all is loosed, you won't feel the kneading pain. Pain, they say, makes you stronger, but that isn't it. You and the mother splayed out on your sides, watching the foal breathe into newly damp hay. And then I thought I'd read a few poems from my book Midwest Gothic, which is coming out this fall from Ashland Poetry Press. I was just looking at cover mock-ups for it, and I'm super excited, so a big shout out to Ashland for being awesome. The book's, it's mostly focused on the lives of my mother and grandmothers in the rural Midwest. And kind of also on my own reckoning with place and family and religion, and sort of asking what it is we keep and what it is we leave behind of those places we're from. So this is called Inheritance. It has a lot of women's names in it that you don't have to keep track of, but they're all like grandmothers, great aunts, etc. Inheritance. Angie had diphtheria, and forever her mother's hand checking her forehead, calling her in from the fields. They let her attend school instead of canning tomatoes. I have her rhubarb and her love of reading at night. Alice raised 6 children in a coop they called the shanty. She sent them to neighbors with buckets for water, the pump handle wailing across the dirt road. I have her brown hair. Imagine it dunked in a tub by the stove to wash when the kids were done. I have her rag rugs. Helen was strong and happy and died too young. I have her china, black rim with pink flowers, still intact half a century after her death. Her cancer is a thread my mother picked up. Each month I feel for its weave. Eleanor was thought the hardy one. Her muscles grew taut from hauling potatoes. Her face grew pinched, watching her sister leave for school. As an old woman, she read romance novels in the tub. Eleanor and Angie wore rain bonnets on windy days, tying the plastic tails under their chins to protect their short permed hair. They stopped going to church, walked to the coffee cup on Sunday mornings, the cafe thick with cigarette smoke. Sometimes they loved each other dearly. Sometimes it was all they could do to look up from the table, their sister's face suddenly old and strange and their own. And I should say that the poem is after one by Kathleen Norris. This next poem is called Primula vulgaris, which is the Latin name for primrose. Add compost, manure, the pulverized feathers of chickens condensed into bags with names like flower tone, holly tone, some that come right out say blood meal. Grandmother does not want to leave her house for the nursing home. Mother does not want to leave her house for the divorce. Fist size and still green against November's frost. Each plant's roots are briefly exposed. Our favorites bloom fuchsia with yellow centers, wild as cat's eyes and bright as slits of flame. Blood and bone, I prepare earth, separate and transplant the primrose. In the dreams, I grind feathers and spade their powdery remains into still warm soil. And I'll read 2 more. This is called The Perimeter. It is wrong to suppose there was just one perimeter. Even in the earliest days, we knew this. A backyard with no fence, just a strange swinging gate. Beyond that, the clothesline, mother reaching up, wooden pins in her mouth and the air full of peonies. Sometimes we thought of the pond as the edge, but past that, another pond. We squatted low, stilled while we traced the movement of tadpole, translucent tails slowly absorbed into body. Don't ask of the tree. Count the strawberry garden, the cornfields hide and seek, the rows of green where we knelt to smash potato bugs between rocks. Don't suppose there wasn't violence from the start. A door always slamming, small animals we trapped and kept without feeding, peering through aquarium walls. We recall the lilacs, the promise of rapture, any day, any day. Even the angels with their fiery swords couldn't figure out where to stand. And I'll just read one more short one. This is called Exodus. Cleft rock, a woman and two children, boy and girl, exit the garden on foot. The girl's shoe falls off, now lopsided, now stung by thistle and lagging. Her mother turns back to call, hurry, no time to pack toothbrush or butterfly barrettes. Cleft rock, fissure channeling deep into stone. A woman with close cropped hair that will soon grow out to a knot at her nape. There was no snake, just my mother's voice, urgent, sure as the chime of a church bell echoing over the copper-tipped town.
Thanks, Laura. Beautiful.
Thank you.
You guys are good with chat. I have never done the chat. It's too much going on. I can't.
I like using the chat.
Okay, it's down to you two, Adam and Teresa. Who wants to read next?
I can add. I can go. Adam, you can go if you want.
We'll let Teresa go, and Adam will close up for the night.
Right, wonderful. This is really beautiful. Thank you so much for organizing.
Thank you guys for coming.
All of you. It's so wonderful to get to hear your work. I will start with my poem from Thrush, which is called "The Only Vegetarian at the Branding." I like this. My knee on its neck, coarse calf hide filling the hole frayed through my jeans. With my elbow, I press the flat of its cheek onto hoof-stamped dirt and dead grass that tangles like hair. My thick braid hangs across his body, an echo of the rope that dragged him from the aluminum pen where his mother keens and men yell, "She won't eat him, but she sure can wrestle them." For them, I dig my knee deeper, grip tighter and pull back his jerking leg, turn his belly skyward like screwing open a tobacco tin. The men holler for me. Cody, my classroom aide, who I see usually stuffed in a child's chair, teaching kids to count, pulls the buck knife from between his teeth, gently slices the thin skin of testicles, tosses them in the bucket filled with balls, pale moons rivered with blood. Some days I want to be a man, a large one, somebody nobody would ever interrupt or call pretty in dwindling gas station light. Someone you would never follow in a gold car, hanging out like a loose tooth, yelling things I could do with my mouth. Cody's brother in a beige baseball cap pulls the iron from the branding barrel. For him, hot metal is money, a job, the weave of the land. But I, who catch spiders delicately between magazines and juice glasses, walk them to the prettiest bushes. I, who once bathed a chicken, massaged her hip for hours to free an egg. I, who teach my students power is for sharing, a rope to pull each other up. I'm the one proud, hollering now as he touches iron to skin. Only in the shower that night, as the scent of burnt flesh, charred fur, unweave from my hair, spiral like smoke around my wrists, do I wonder what wire fences I've let grow in my chest? Do I wonder how to be the woman I say that I am? For dinner, Cody's mom made everyone steak. My PB&J on the side of the tray, white bread already absorbing the blood. In the cramped yellow kitchen, his brother throws testicles into hot oil. "Miss D," he yells, "you can't leave a branding without eating some balls." "They're free range," Cody offers. Because I want anything but weakness, I slide the hot chunk of flesh into my cheek. It resists the point of my teeth. "It's rubbery," I say, "hard as fuck to chew." Thank you. All right, so I am going to read now a few poems from my manuscript in progress. It's about my time teaching and helping co-run a school at the Oceti camp at Standing Rock, which was, the camp against the Dakota Access Pipeline there. Before I read from this book, I always want to say, please also go read the amazing Native poets writing about the movement, including Natalie Diaz and Layli Long Soldier and Hyde Erdrich. There's an amazing feature on Orion magazine. You should Google it because it's real good. All right, but so I have been thinking a lot, given the world, right, about the places that we can find joy even amidst trauma. Anyway. All right, so here's a poem called "There Are No Police in This Poem." Only the kids, balancing in their snow boots, the log beneath them, rainbowed in resistance slogans, the slush gray light interrupted by the bright flags of their arms. They waved down our car. "Teachers, teachers!" We unclick the loose tooth of each manual lock, and the dinged up doors, full weight of the kids on their handles, fly open like the arms of startled infants. There are no police in this poem. Only Shawnee Ray, my foot as her springboard, vaulting to the council, asterisking my borrowed skirt with the juice of her gas station pickle. Only Shelby's hands winging my books from the back seat, and Shailena, who can't be bothered, wedging her knees into the narrow volumes of poetry, slick picture book covers. I'm saying there are no police in this car, where Frankie lunges over everybody, her arms wrapped around her arms and long black cape of a coat wrapped around baby Dylan, marshmallow man in his snowsuit, fingers Sour Patch sticky. Somehow, suddenly, my hands, my feet are off the wheel, the pedals. I am ankle deep in the snow. All the teachers are, shivering spectators of this wild joy, and I can see it doesn't belong to me, but I can love it anyhow. There are no police anywhere. As Emma's elbow pokes the horn, beep, 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 jostling through the snow muffle of prairie, as Raina and Nyla and RJ co-sardine the driver's seat, getaway curls smushed on the felt of the ceiling. There are no seats left in the car, so Michael and Layton scramble the windshield, sprawl on the roof. There are only the kids shouting the ecstatic tally of themselves. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 14, as they take this frame that looked so inflexible and make space for each of their bodies. Thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to decide All right. I might be changing my mind about what I'm going to read. All right. This poem is about after coming back from camp. I had to leave early and thought I was going to go back, and I couldn't because I had back surgery, and so this is about that. It's about missing community, I guess, which feels relevant right now. In the hospital, I wake, still believing I belong to everything. My body is Highway 1806, snakeskin secreted in river grass, and the pitchy chirp of the machine beside my ear, making linear the story of my pulse, and the meadowlark's crushed tail feathers still ruffled in the wind of the semis, and the nurses who check me, and the flies fucking loudly in the grass, and the soft breath of pencils on the chart. My body is the suspended ceiling, tiles racing in dirty currents above my head, and the river smooth acorn, and the crinkled periwinkle curtain shushing the room in two. Tonight, I can't remember the drum's nightly rhythms, and my body is the small, jeweled cries my roommate sends up from her sleep, and the dress coat balled beneath my husband's head as his shoulders twist against the vinyl chair. My body is a 4-inch incision packaged in gauze, and the path of someone else's scalpel through my spine, and a stranger's hands on the small of my back. Tell me, faded blue flowers of the hospital gown, bag of morphine, bag of saline, do you think it's snowing there tonight? I had to give up a piece of me in order to walk again. My body is a body healing in a neurosurgery ward. The lights that bloom along my wired arm are only the EKG. And then I'll just read one more short one. And I just messed up my screen. Okay. All right, this is, I guess, just sort of about, there being a future after things, which is, I don't know, sorry, I'm over-explaining. All right, confluence. Here at this half-assed state park without a sign, with its cracked concrete bench and triangle of dying cottonwoods, the Missouri meets the Mississippi, meeting not like a ballet or a twisting of silk scarves, but maybe like construction workers, shaking hands before a building forever half built. And what is there to do now but love this unfinished work of the river, carrying everything it has ever been given, snowmelt streams like a cold bandana circling its neck, shreds of styrofoam cooler catching in its teeth, sturgeon eggs blooming with their translucent tails, nitrates and phosphates and soil glittering with bone. And I'm sorry if you could hear my toddler crying in the background. And this single Mountain Dew bottle eddying in a green-tinged foam, and the ashes of Ochetti reddening in all of our throats. I sit with my knees tucked to my chest, listen to the ducks call each other from either side of what will be the same water and river. You and I both know that despite your dams, you will go on to grow deadly algae in the Gulf, to feed rich alluvial plains, to shelter alligators and hellbenders and mud puppies, to do the most beautiful and terrible things. We know that the word end is never an end, but always a mouth instead. Thank you so much to all of you. I appreciate this so much. This was lovely. Again, I'm so sorry about my 2-year-old. I don't know if I want to hear him or not. We're in a small place.
That's quite all right. Thank you so much. It's Adam's turn.
Helen, thank you very much for organizing this and for everyone. It's a real pleasure and an honor to read with y'all. Thrush has been one of my favorites for a number of years, Helen. So it is a real pleasure to read with y'all. I'd like to start with a couple poems from Stray, which came out a couple of years ago. Like you all, looking at our poems now that were written pre-COVID-19 is very strange in some ways when solitude or loneliness or isolation show up in poems. My father kept very sharp knives growing up as a woodcarver. So this is Solitude's Best Apprentice. Always the basement work of winter nights, my father's hands to the bench stone, honing his good knives' bird edges, picked from wraps of worn denim. Blades he tended for the one sure cut, where and when he'd need it. Chisels, gouges, sloids for stop cuts, their fishtail handles oversized to better turn their leverage in tight spaces. He shaved back each peel, thin as parchment. Cut after slim cut, his hands trained the shape, freeing what it was he saw or thought he saw. A mongrel dog, a mask. Wood he knew is flexible as a man needs. It breathes through its grain. Fiddlebacks swirled like tight curls on a child. Once he crafted a man, a clown hobo I now see he fashioned from my face. A willow pole shouldered, nameless fish hanging from the clenched heart of his hand. My father, Solitude's best apprentice, mastering the world's first craft, apprenticed me in turn. In that floodlit basement, his knives lined the table, patient as black ice on the marsh road. With the night's last cut, he passed where I sat on the stairs. I went down, thumbed his work. Now I shush the broom and gather tailings, just as I was taught. When I was in college, there was a guy, Dwayne, who was my grandmother's house manager for her floor of the assisted living place that she was in. And Dwayne was a very good man. And I realized that is more rare than I knew then. Elegy with cigarettes and folding chairs. Dwayne, assistant supervisor for second shift at Woodland Manor, took 2 chairs from Ted's room after he died. The family wanting only photos of themselves and valuables. The chairs they left with the bed, the books, his sailor's chest. So Dwayne carried the chairs to the porch, where my grandmother, Ted's nursing home girlfriend, and widow Jackie took in the Wisconsin spring, smoking their 3 allotted cigarettes. Sometimes I'd visit, bring extra smokes, a 6-pack, and sprawl on the cooling concrete, pleased to be someone's guest. As shadows stretched the reach from St. Paul's, across the lot and the cars, and kept toward us all, a blight of chill the blind women blamed on cloud weather and not the sure advance of night. Other times, I could be no one's friend and sat in my truck and drank, watching them tilt their faces toward the sun's remainder. How sure they tugged at their shawls. Then it was good Dwayne's arm to usher his wards through the late and well-lit halls. I'm gonna pivot over to a couple of newer poems. Yeah, so this is In Service. Bless this moment before the hydraulic door sighs open. Bless the tamped heel click on the low nap carpet. Bless the medicine cart, its quiet wheels. Bless how it feels to watch your face attenuate as the glass levers inward. Bless its disappearance and the hall that takes its place. Bless this, mylar balloons taped to temporary nameplates along the corridor. Bless late comforts. Bless night nurses ending another shift. Bless their laughter. And that was also, yeah, from something I'm working on for my grandma, and hospitals, right? Taking on new weight in our consciousness. We used to go shopping as well. I would take her to Shopko in Green Bay, try on scarves and hats. The dressing room mirrors. The wheelchair fits down no aisles through ladies' fashion, so I tilt her chair and clip the pantsuit rack. In her lap, scarves on scarves, piles of wool and baseball caps. She's built the world anew through cataracts and feigns delight, singing lovely. The mirrors laugh back without guilt. Stroke struck, clumsy as a child's fact. Stick figures there in her eyes, fogged city. Look, see. And I just close out with two quick ones from the end of Stray. This is called The Vine Knife. Another strain in the fabric of days, already chafed to corded threads. Like work pants, I wore so long, my vine knife's heft rubbed through a belt loop. That, for it, was that. Lost to rust in elder's patch, or dropped to a barroom floor once the last strings eased and the loop became a strap. The lack of its honest weight at my waist, a grief that spiked as I kicked a late melon's skull. Harvest closed, then came snow. And I'll close out with a poem called If There's Nothing You Need. Suppose I'll go then to the hardware store where they still hang steel buckets for bulk nails to weigh and bag in a small paper sack. Wander past chain links wound tight on wooden spools and rope displays. If I test its rough threads, the hewn braid snaps taut in my hands. Pulling shroud-laid twine through a fist I clench, a flame that burns from nothing. My raw palm. I need the industry of things. Flatheads heavy in a breast pocket. Their points cut the bag, my shirt, when I find you alone watching the road. I force a long embrace. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Helen, for bringing us together.
Oh, it was
Thank
my
you very
pleasure.
much, Helen.